There's nothing to screw up your Friday like realizing it's only Thursday.
Yeah, that definitely does it. That does it 10 times out of 10.
Oh, and yesterday I went through the day thinking it was Thursday. I even had an appointment outside of the office yesterday afternoon, and the guy never even said, "Hey, it's only Wednesday." So I show up a day early, and
they're perfectly okay with it.
Yeah. So that helped me continue.
Convenient.
To think.
It doesn't help with the remembering the days, but
right.
It's convenient nonetheless.
Let me take my mask off.
Frees up your Friday and Saturday, right? Yeah.
No, I always have things going off.
Yeah.
I don't get a day off any longer.
No.
Life of a freelancer. Let me tell you, those days are long gone. No Fed employees and a paycheck for me any longer.
Nope.
So hey, thank you everyone for tuning in to the Thursday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. I thought we had a lot of great guests yesterday.
We did. It was a great show.
It was a good show. So for anyone that missed it, as Tyler said at the beginning, you can always check out the clips on civiccentertv.com. You can watch the full Megacast, or you can just watch the individual interviews as well. And thank you to Tyler and Jake, because after the show, that's just one of the many jobs that you do.
Yep.
After the show. So this is the Oakland County Megacast. For those of you who may be tuning in for the very first time, we want to say thank you and welcome. We are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon, 2 hours of live interviews right here on the Megacast as we continue to try to work our ways through this thing called the COVID-19 crisis and pandemic. Tyler, when you guys started this way back in March, what was the conversation like? Did you guys think it would be a month, 2 months?
Yeah, there was a lot of conversation about, it'll be a few weeks, it'll be maybe a couple months max. I didn't necessarily believe it at that point. I still don't necessarily believe that it's almost over now. I kind of see this as we're at maybe the midpoint at best, but it definitely early on, there was a lot of, in a few weeks, we'll look back on this and be like, wow. That was crazy, right?
If I would have known this was going to last as long as it has, I would have made a lot of different life decisions, let me tell you.
I would have started living with the wolves. I would have just done that. That seems like a much better 2020.
I would have gotten in on a mask business.
Yeah.
Really early on. Definitely. We could be rich. But that's the way life goes. That is the way life goes. But still 6 months plus into the pandemic, and things are still changing each and every day. Some of those changes are continuing to come out of Lansing, because our governor has now signed another executive order establishing what is going to be called care and recovery centers to help care for the elderly with COVID-19. The centers, which can be wings, units, or buildings located within existing nursing homes, will have to meet additional safety and preparedness standards compared to the state's past regional hubs. The governor's approach to the virus in nursing homes has been the subject of many, many heated debates. And keep in mind, about 32% of Michigan's COVID-19 deaths have been nursing home residents. No press conference for this executive order. It was signed late Wednesday night. Kind of just, here it is. And this is what we're going to do. One of the things I look at with this, because obviously the regional hubs weren't working. Some people feel like there should be completely different facilities. The governor is saying that's not feasible. This is going to require basically different personnel, separate wings, separate things of that nature. But if you're already having a hard time, which so many of these long-term care facilities are having a hard time getting personnel, how are they going to staff these as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's been so tough for these facilities to be able to keep up with the load of COVID-19, as well as their other patients on top of that. And then in this scenario where you have established care and recovery centers either within those buildings, or a new wing is put on, or you dedicate an entire facility to this. Now you have to have dedicated staff, I would think, dedicated staff just for that wing, which puts other operations within your business there having been understaffed. So you're either kicking the can down the road in terms of the staffing issues, and you're shifting it from one element of your care to another element of your care, or you're going to continue to have those staffing issues and the potential for cross-contamination.
This is one of the decisions I think that came out of the task force that they have. I think the task force should have been convened much earlier than what it was to try to address these issues. No easy answer here. So in a lot of these facilities, they can now be deemed one of these new facilities, right? So, but they're going to have to prove that they can abide by these new rules and regulations. And Tyler, I don't know, well, you probably don't, but one of the things that I do a lot because I get bored is I love public documents. If anyone knows that about me, I could sit there all day and look at public documents, and I've done so many stories on nursing home facilities, and you can pull up their inspection reports. And a lot of these places that were part of the regional hub prior to this, they didn't have the best inspection reports. So they're telling them, hey, you're going to have to start stepping up your game in order to be one of these new facilities. So best of luck to all of them, because people are dying. They are our most vulnerable population, and we need, there has to be an answer here. There has to be an answer somewhere. So let's hope that this at least starts to address some of that and keeps some of our elderly patients and loved ones safe. Also, if you check out civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus. That's where you will find the latest headlines. Layoffs are coming for airline workers, even more massive layoffs. Thousands of airline workers are receiving pink slips this week. American is furloughing 19,000 employees. United is laying off about 13,000. Now, these layoffs add to the job loss that already total 150,000 at the nation's 4 largest carriers. Airline leaders say if lawmakers are able to come to some type of an agreement in D.C. and pass the economic relief bill, that bill includes $25 billion in payroll aid for airlines. They say that that could help them reverse some of these furloughs. Talk about an industry that has been completely devastated by the coronavirus pandemic, and that is the airline industry and the travel industry.
Yeah, and it's an industry that's been hit hard before, and none of those lessons are really applicable in this scenario. So it's not necessarily, in this case, anything of their wrongdoing. It's the circumstances that are taking this industry into, no pun intended, a tailspin here. And if that relief can help them reverse these furloughs, then that's all the more reason for this negotiation between the two parties in D.C. to come to a conclusion. And we've talked to Representative Andy Levin. We talked to Senator Gary Peters yesterday. We both asked them about where these negotiations are. They both have said it's relatively close, but they are coming to the end of their session. They have Representative Levin mentioned the possibility that they could extend their session to try to get this done, but they've been so close to getting this completed and through and getting the aid to these industries and to these people and to the municipalities that desperately need them for so long, that if it continues this back and forth where one pulls out at the 11th hour of a negotiation and then they come back and it happens with the other party and it happens again and again and again, this is going to continue to take an impact on these industries. And we're seeing it right now with the airline industry, but that's certainly not the last, and it's really just one of the first.
And I know that there were talks with some of the airline CEOs to say, hey, can you just hold off on these for a little bit longer? Yeah. Let us try to get this passed. And they were like, we can't. We just can't. So what they're hoping is this will kind of, it's going to spur them to say, this is real. This is real for these companies. Right. This is real for everyday people. You've got to put your differences aside in D.C. and get this measure passed so that some of these people can stay on the job, so that airlines can stay afloat. But I think even coming out of the pandemic, the airline industry is not going to look like what it did going into the pandemic.
No, it's going to be a second major change of the industry, the first across-the-board major shift in the way that all these major airliners and even the smaller airlines and the commuter airlines operate that we've seen since probably 9/11 because of this pandemic, and trying to keep safety standards and contamination standards to be even higher than before in case there's another situation like this or something similar down the line, or a really strong flu season, and really just for general cleanliness. And then on top of that, you have the economic issues that are going to have an impact on the staffing of these flights, probably the number of flights that they have, how much they're doing direct flights, and of course on the ticket prices for those that may be flying, especially those that are commuting by flight on a daily or a weekly basis.
Yeah, I have a friend that is flying this week to Florida. Flights are actually pretty cheap to some places right now. I think they got round trip for like $126. Prior to the pandemic, whenever I used to fly, so when I worked for ATF, I used to go all over. I used to call them cootie cubes, because every time I flew, it seemed like I got sick. I was like, I know it's because there were cooties on these planes. So I do get people, and I don't know if there's any truth to that whatsoever, really, but I feel like you're enclosed with all these people, and people are coughing and this, that, and the other, and you try to, and obviously I didn't wear a mask before the pandemic, but before, you'd wash your hands all the time, and I'd sanitize. I have not had to fly since the pandemic. I don't know how comfortable I would be. I think I would still do it, but I don't know if I would want to fly international and be on a plane for 12 hours, though.
There's something about the airport and something about air travel that just brings out the most deep-seated animal brain behaviors of people that I've ever seen. It's like they flip a switch. Once I'm past security, it's just all bets are off. And if I got a cough, I'm just going to cough, and you just get out of my way. If I got to sneeze, I'm going to lick my hands after having a snack, and I'm going to wipe them off on the handle of the seat at the terminal. I'm just going to be a disgusting human being.
Oh, Tyler.
It's awful. I think that's one good thing that may come out of this is people are going to be more self-conscious about it. Like, oh, who was the last person to lick the handle on this seat over here?
Okay, we're going to move on from that. There you go, Tyler. Again, I thought today was Friday. That's why I threw in this story. The atmosphere under the Friday night lights going to feel different beginning October 9th, following the Michigan High School Athletic Association's decision to increase the football spectator limit to 30% of a stadium's capacity, up to 1,000 fans. So that move from 2 spectators per athlete to 30% capacity means students will have the chance to cheer on their classmates. Schools, though, have to stay vigilant and enforcing social distancing to limit COVID-19 outbreaks in schools and communities. Those stories and so much more over on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Tyler, I threw that in for you because I was thinking it was Friday and you guys are doing the Friday night football. But it's not Friday. But still, you're in the stands. What do you think about this?
It's going to have an impact regardless, because that decision, of course, coming out this close to this week's football games. It's definitely going to have an impact on how these schools determine how they're letting spectators in, how they're keeping that organized, because it's a school-to-school decision. The MHSAA is making recommendations based off the guidelines provided by the state of Michigan, and then from there allowing each individual school and each individual local health department to determine further regulations or how they enforce them from there. So you have a situation like in our first week at Oxford where they could have let 2 people in per participant, and they let nobody in. Whereas last week with West Bloomfield, they were letting people in from visiting media. They were letting people in from there were spectators for both sides. We had parents for West Bloomfield that were sitting just outside of the press booth from where we were broadcasting last Friday, and on the other side, Southfield A&T brought in a fair amount of spectators from their team as well, and that's going to be the case at Clarkston this week also as they bring in visiting media, and they bring in and allow people in from West Bloomfield and from Clarkston to that game. So this is another wrinkle that's put in there. It's going to be a school-to-school basis decision, and it's going to be interesting to see how some schools enforce it and how other schools do, because maybe they let a set amount of people in that they know have been have been tested or that they know at least the names of, and maybe it's assigned seating. There's a lot of questions with this.
Yeah, I wonder, too, when the weather gets colder, people are going to be wearing gloves and hats and masks, so they'll be covered up as well. So that could play into their decision making. I don't know. So you'll find all of those on civiccentertv.com. Again, this is the Oakland County Megacast. You can catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon on civiccentertv.com. Birmingham Area Municipal Access on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM and 88.1 FM The Biff. If you do have cable still, we want to say thank you. You help support programs such as this. You can find us on Channel 15 on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T. We want to give a shout out today, too, to the Keego Harbor Police Department. They are streaming today's episode of the Megacast live here on their Facebook page. So we want to say thank you to them because we know they do have a big following. And with that, do we want to take a break or just go straight to the show?
Straight on in.
Well, and we're just going to jump straight into the show then, and let's go ahead and bring in the Chief of Police there in our fine city of Keego Harbor, Chief John Fitzgerald. Thank you for being with us on the Oakland County Megacast.
Good morning, Ronnie and Tyler. How are you?
It's always great to have our local chief on with us. How are things going over there in our fine city of Keego?
Things are going pretty well. Very smooth right now, and I hope it stays that way.
We all do, don't we? We check in with you on a pretty regular basis as we've been trying to navigate the pandemic. I know the last time we talked to you, one of the big things had to do with the mask. The mandate was coming out. I'm really not hearing a lot about that from any of the businesses in Keego. I live there, so I'm out and about. Any things that you guys are hearing about issues with people not wearing masks or any confrontations from the police department standpoint?
It's going pretty well. We're not getting very many complaints at all from businesses or from citizens. And I think you can see it as you walk around yourself. As you go to stores, you notice people put their mask on to go in. And actually, my biggest guilt is going to a restaurant. I wear it in, sit down and eat, and then I get up and walk out the door and go, oh, I was supposed to put it on before I left the table. But, we're luckily not seeing any confrontations and problems in Keego Harbor with the mask issue. I think everybody's just trying to look out for themselves and look out for others a little bit, which is nice.
I always laugh when I go to the CVS or Rite Aid there and you see people walking up to the door and then they go, and you can see them turn around because they left their mask in their car, so they're forgetting it. So that's good to see that we've come to understand that this is just the way life is going to be for us right now, and to be respectful of those employees that are having to, work behind the doors. They didn't make the mandate. They're just doing what the state is trying to tell them to do as well. School is back open. How are things over at the school? I saw your cop sitting outside Roosevelt the other day, and we were like, wait, what time is it? Because we forget these aren't normal school times any longer.
That's correct. The school times that are posted on the signs for slowing down pretty much only affects the very first drop-off in the morning. The schools have done a good job of getting good flow in and out of the schools because they have 2 drop-offs and 2 pickups each day. And it's actually worked very well the way Roosevelt School's running it. But as a reminder to everybody coming by the schools, even if it doesn't say school zone time on the signs out there, if you see the police car sitting in the middle of the road, and we're not hiding behind billboards, we're not trying to write tickets, we're not trying to catch people with gotchas. We're right out in the middle of the road. The officer's got the overhead lights going. And remember, when you see an officer, a tow truck, or any emergency vehicle with overhead lights going, what are you supposed to do when you come up to them? You have to slow down to 10 miles an hour under the posted speed limit to go past them. So if we're sitting right in front of the school with the lights on, that knocks the 35 mile an hour zone down to 25 miles an hour, which is the same as the school zone. So it's our, without having a sign there, it's still, the speed limit is 25 when you see us out there with the lights going, and it's all for the safety of the kids. It's not for tickets. We've written a few because some people aren't getting the idea, but it's we have a lot of pedestrian students and their parents back and forth to school and want to keep it safe around the schools for them.
And we appreciate you doing that as well. In terms of the pandemic, how are you guys doing? How is your staff running into any issues? I know in the beginning PPE was such a big thing. It seems like a lot of the issues of coming up with enough PPE or even disinfectant wipes and things of that nature. How are you guys doing in that area?
Sitting pretty well. We have enough in our station to last, and we keep trying to order ahead to make sure that we don't run out. We've been fortunate to not be hit by any outbreaks. We had 2 earlier events. One officer had symptoms and had to stay out for 8 days till his test came back, and he came back negative. And another officer had contact with some people and had to stay out for a little while. And fortunately, nobody has come down with it on our department, and we're hoping for the same way. And we want everybody else to kind of do the same things. Keep your social distancing, wear the masks, whether you believe in them or not, when you're around people. Because I have another personal friend who they went to a family funeral out of state, and unfortunately, I think 4 of them came back with COVID. And you're around your friends, you're around your family. You think, oh, that it's okay. Nobody's got symptoms. We're all right. If you aren't living with them, you still have to be careful and keep your distance from them and protect yourselves.
And Chief, I would imagine that has to be a big concern for you because you do have such a small staff. So if one person gets it, you're around so many of the other people. Could it kind of wipe out your department? And if so, what's the plan behind that? And if they're getting tested, can you do a rapid test and can you bring them back faster, or do you have to wait out that time?
Well, Ronnie, that was a horrible term to use. Wipe out our department. We don't want that.
Well, we don't mean it like that. We don't mean it like that. But how many officers do you have? Many of them are only part-time as well.
We have 10 of us. Right now, there's five full-time and 5 part-time, and it could be very disadvantageous to us if somebody came down with it. But the one thing is we're spread out on the different shifts, and there's not a whole lot of interaction between officers except on the day shift when we have a few of us here and people in and out for paperwork or different things like that. But the afternoons and the midnight guys, you just run into them at shift break, and they pretty much hopefully are keeping their distance and watching themselves. We have protocols in place to sanitize the cars when you get in and out of them to make sure you're not leaving something to spread and you're not picking up something from somebody else. We have station cleanings going on here. We have a great staff at the city who's come down with protocols and ways to try and keep it safe here. And they come in and do some kind of spray on the weekends. We have plenty of wipes around, regulations for coming into City Hall and coming into the police station. You have to have a mask on to come in. We have the hand sanitizer right there. The city just installed, you might as well call them sneeze guards, but plexiglass windows at the front desk. So it puts a barrier between us and the citizens coming in, which we don't like the barrier because, we're a small community. We like being close to our community and our citizens and the people that come in. But for the safety of everybody and keep the city running, they had to put these barriers in for health purposes.
Chief John Fitzgerald with us. He is the chief of the Keego Harbor Police Department, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. Chief, later on this week, there is a protest that's being planned in the city of Keego Harbor. Can you tell us a little bit about what information your department has?
Okay. Yeah. It's a protest with a march. It is the same organizers that were here in June, and that protest and march went off very smoothly, I'd like to say. Cooperation between the organizers, the group, the officers, because we're here not to try and stop their rights at all from protesting, and they don't always have nice things to say about us as the police, but they have the right to say them, and we're here to protect the rights. That's what we do. We're also here to protect them on their march, and that's just kind of, I want to give everybody a little heads up. If you're coming home tomorrow between 5 o'clock and 7 p.m. on Orchard Lake Road, you might want to try a different route because there's 2 crossing points, and the Sylvan Lake Police Department and the Orchard Lake Police Department are working in conjunction with us, and they're going to help this march get across the streets, which they did at the June march. The group will cross, but it could be a 5-10 minute delay if you're on Orchard Lake Road. So if you're in a hurry someplace to get home tomorrow night between those hours, you might want to take an alternate route. The marchers will be crossing at Warwick and Sylvan Lake, and then marching down to Commerce Road and Orchard Lake Road, where they're going to cross again. Then they're going to come back up to Cass Lake Road, go down Cass Lake Road to by Roosevelt School, where we're going to cross them on Cass Lake Road. So there could be a few short traffic delays. So like I said, plan another route if you know you're going to be really in a hurry tomorrow night. We want to make sure that nobody's tied up and no tempers flare because they have to wait for a little bit while the group crosses the road.
Well, that area can already be a bottleneck as it is. So good thing so many people are working remotely right now. So I would imagine traffic flow is a little bit lighter than it would be in years past. Will they mainly be on the sidewalk then, not necessarily the streets?
That's our plan, and that's what happened last time. The plan is the march takes place on the sidewalks. The only time it goes into Orchard Lake Road or Cass Lake Road is when it does the crossover. As far as traffic, still a lot of people are working from home, but we've noticed in the last month or so, traffic looks like it's picked up a lot on Orchard Lake Road. So we just want to prevent any accidents from happening, because when you get a lot of people walking, hopefully nobody's going to accidentally step off the curb. And drivers are driving along at 40 miles an hour along Orchard Lake Road, and if they are not paying attention, we want no tragedies. We want this to be a smooth protest, a smooth march, let their voices be heard, and everybody else carry on.
Chief, when they do the protest, how does it work? Do they have to get a permit prior to be able to organize an event such as this?
No permit is needed for under a certain amount of people, and the estimate is that they're going to be under that number. We are glad that we're cooperating with each other, and they contacted us and let us know ahead of time so we could make plans and get out there to help protect them while they're doing their march and protest. So, like I said, no permit is needed for that one.
Chief John Fitzgerald with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Chief Fitzgerald, just a little bit over a month away from the November general election, and there's expected to be a lot more poll watchers this year. There's been some discussion contentiously on a national level about people maybe planning to be aggressive at some polling locations. Keego Harbor usually is a very tame polling location during most elections, general primary and midterm. Are there any discussions within the department, within the city of Keego Harbor, in case things do get contentious at the polls this year about keeping the peace?
There's, we hear of no plans that there's going to be bad at our place, but we're always trying to plan ahead. We're looking ahead. We will have extra officers around. We're going to pay special attention, but this is America. It's everybody's right to come vote, and it's everybody's right not to be hassled while they're voting. So please keep that in mind. People come in to vote. People come and stand outside to support their candidate, and that's what this country is about. The fact that we're supposed to have free elections and transformations of power, and no intimidation needed at the polls. Let people come and do their thing. But of course, we are looking and paying attention, our ears to the ground with our law enforcement partners. If we hear of anything coming up, we'll take as many special precautions as necessary. But like you said before, Keego Harbor is been pretty non-contentious, even though we have a mix of voters on both sides. And I hope they can all just show up, place their vote, have a conversation outside with each other, and carry on.
Yeah, and the good way that it's set up here in Keego is that they're a little bit distance away. So if you're actually parking your car in the parking lot, you're not going to pass them unless you want to, or you need to go up and you need to talk to them, unless it's a busy day and then you have to park a little bit further away. And I will say I'm a fan of voting in person just because I want my sticker. I know. It's the little things in life, Chief. I need my sticker. And last year they changed them. We upped our sticker game. It's a lot of social media pressure to have the best sticker out there.
It is.
These days.
Yes.
Chief, while we have you on, I know October is obviously today, October 1st, trick or treat, the end of the month. Keego is a big area for trick or treating because of the way some of our neighborhoods are laid out. Any special things for trick-or-treating this year that you want the public to know? Because there's been so much discussion about, is it going to be canceled? Is it not going to be canceled? We know it's not, but what do you want the public to understand about trick-or-treat?
Well, trick-or-treating is not really a governmental regulated activity. We don't run the thing. We don't tell people. The most they do is they put out advisory hours, 5:30 to 7:30 or whatever it's going to be. I'm not sure what it is this year. yet, but that'll get posted. And they do that for the safety of the kids, to get them off the street as soon as possible, so they're not walking around in the dark. I would use, if I was gonna have children out trick-or-treating, I'd use my own common sense about what's going on. Anything that goes into the bag when they get it home, maybe you have sanitary wipes to wipe them off before the kids touch it after it comes out of the bag. If you're at home and you don't want to be involved, turn your porch light off, keep your door shut, don't answer it. And because I know there's some people that want to have minimal contact with other people while this COVID thing is still going on. And that's all right. That's not a problem. And nobody should fault you for deciding that, I'm not going to play the hand out the candy game this year. And if you are going to hand it out, I have a mask on, because you're going to have a lot of people coming into your space at your front door. If the weather permits, maybe put a table out in front and stand outside in the fresh air where the breeze is blowing the wind, and it's probably a little bit safer to do it from outside there across the length of a table, drop it in the bag, and have them go on their way. But I don't know if there's any surefire way to make it totally safe. As in with everything else in the rest of the world, there's really not a surefire way to make it all safe. But just use as much common sense, follow the guidelines about sanitizing things and keeping your distance from people, and wearing masks.
Chief Fitzgerald with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Our neighborhood, I'm in Harbor Village, is huge for trick-or-treating. And I will say, I think this year we're reconsidering just because of that. And it's not just other people coming into your neighborhood, because we get people from outside of our little subdivision. They come from everywhere. It's like hundreds and hundreds. But it's also, you're touching the candy. Like, even if we did a candy cannon, which we've kind of had in the past, you're still, we're like, oh, we got to break out the pirate ship again and have the candy cannon, where my husband was slingshotting candy at the kids.
Oh, boy.
But even in that regard, you're still touching the candy, the bags, and then putting it, and then they're touching it. And it just, when you start to think about it, it gets all crazy. It's just too much for all of us. But real quickly, before we let you go, because I know your time is valuable, I have to ask you, we're going to be coming into the upcoming holiday season. Amazon Prime is already doing its Prime Day early. Bloomfield Hills, I think it was, our neighboring community, issued basically a warning to let people know that the package thieves are out there. I haven't really seen any of them in our neighborhood, but we're always watching for people doing that, because people are buying stuff online still like crazy. Any of those issues going on in the city of Keego right now?
We've been fortunate that so far we haven't had any reports of that, maybe one or two here or there, but it's not been the problem it has been in other areas. And whether it's Christmas season or not, right now with this, with the COVID situation going on, a lot more people are ordering and having packages delivered. The best bet is to, if you have a box on your porch, you can have the delivery put it in, so it's not sitting out there visible that there's a delivery sitting here. Your neighbors, keep an eye out for your neighborhood. You see a car that doesn't belong, that's slowly trolling through the neighborhood, and it doesn't belong there, give us a call. We'll come out and check it out. That's what we're there for. We're there to try and keep the neighborhood safe, keep your property protected. And we have a pretty good response time in Keego. We like to get out there and help you guys where we can. So keep an eye out. If you're the one that's home in the neighborhood during the week and you see that car that doesn't belong there, especially if they're stopping in front of houses and you happen to notice there's packages in their eyeball and that kind of stuff, call us. Let us get out there and check them out. I recommend you don't intervene with them yourselves. Dial 911 or dial the non-emergency line of 248-975-9200. They're going to answer at West Bloomfield Police and Fire Dispatch. That is still the Keego Harbor Police and Fire Dispatch. So don't hang up when you hear them say West Bloomfield. Let us know about it, and we'll get a car out there to check them out.
Chief, we appreciate it. And also, just everyone, look out for your neighbors. And like you said, so many times the delivery people will leave them like right there on the front so you could see the big packages sitting there. So we'll talk with our neighbors, and we'll either bring their packages in our house, let them know that we have them, or we'll try to hide them behind a chair or something that they have on their front porch, so it's not so visible, like this big old thing. Hey, I'm on the front porch. Come steal me, Chief.
Come take my new come take my new TV, right?
Right, exactly. We do. We know what everyone's buying, though, that way, I will say. So, not always a good thing. Chief, it's always great to have you on with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. Anything we didn't ask you that you want to get out to people before we let you go?
No, I think we covered a lot of stuff. And once again, it's just look out for each other, take care of each other, be kind to one another, because that'll reduce us having to come and do anything. Appreciate all the information you and Tyler put out there for us. And Ronnie, I wish you guys a great weekend.
Thank you, and also extend our gratitude to all the members of your staff over there at the police department. I know they're working hard to keep us safe, and also it's always great when we see Officer Cote in the neighborhood with the dog snacks. So tell him thank you. Trixie appreciates it.
I hate to say this, but he's told me that because of the COVID, he's had to hold off on the dog snacks, and he's got some dogs that are very angry with him when they come up to the car, and he's not giving them the snacks right now. But, I did forget one other thing is, I probably have not had more people come up and say thank you for doing this job in the last 6 months as I've had in my whole career of 34 years in doing this. More people have come up and they're doing it to all the officers. And, thank you to them for doing that, because it's one of those positives that keeps us going. When we see on the news the negativity towards the police and the protest towards the police, we realize that there's a lot more people that understand we're here enforcing the laws that the people have put in place, trying to make it a safer and better community, and we appreciate your support.
Well, we appreciate everything that you guys and your entire team are doing to keep Keego Harbor safe. So thank you to all of you as well. We'll let you go now, Chief, but and a happy weekend to you as well. I hope you get to get out and enjoy this beautiful fall weather as October is upon us. Hit an apple orchard or, a pumpkin patch or something. Chief, we're never too old for that.
How about a golf ball? I'm good for a few more rounds of golf.
Just like my husband. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, we are going to be speaking with the owner of the Multilingual Detroit Tour Company. This has to be a hard time for them. It'll be interesting to see how they're surviving. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Parks COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
The Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dull alongside Tyler Keefe here in our studios of Civic Center TV, 89.3 in the greater West Bloomfield area. It's always great to be able to join all of you. Thank you for tuning in with us as we work Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, to bring you interviews with newsmakers and decision makers and interesting people throughout the greater West Bloomfield and Metro Detroit area as we all continue to navigate the COVID-19 crisis. And I would imagine that this next guest has quite the survival story to share with us. Let's bring in Dildora Damisch. She is the owner of the Multilingual Detroit Tour Company. Thank you for being with us on the Megacast. Always great to have you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So can we just start out for those that aren't familiar with the Detroit Tour Company? What is it and what do you offer?
Okay, my Detroit downtown tour company called Multilingual, which means I personally speak 6 languages, and we can provide tours more than 10 languages. Actually, before the quarantine started, we were booked for entire summer. We're supposed to have people from Germany, England, Italy, and Spain, but unfortunately, this has happened. When I have visitors coming from all over the world, not only from all over the world, from the United States, we try to show undiscovered beauty of Detroit, which means beautiful buildings, and give advice where to go, and where city of booming of food. We have so many new restaurants, and we usually recommend our visitors to visit this restaurant and support these small businesses.
Okay, I have to ask you, I'm so envious. How did you learn 6 languages?
Actually, I'm originally from Uzbekistan, which is mean it was part of former Soviet Union. I grew up with 2 languages. And then I got married, moved to Germany, and because I speak Uzbek, I'm able to speak Turkish and, Uyghur language, the language with minority of China speak it. And because I speak Russian, I can understand a lot of Slavic languages. This is how I learned.
And how did you end up here in Detroit?
My husband was in car industries in 1997 when we were transferred from Munich, Germany to Detroit. I expected Detroit to be like Chicago, New York, and then second day when we visited downtown Detroit, can you believe me? I thought we didn't find the downtown.
Oh,
It was really ghost city, no people, and I cried for 2 weeks and said, what we're doing here. This is how we will end up. It was really sad, and I said, okay, after a while, when I understood I will stay in this city, I started digging in history and architecture, because 1920s, Detroit was booming. And I discovered so many beautiful, interesting things. This is what I decided to start this business and show the beautiful places and tell the wonderful history of Detroit for our visitors.
Dildora Damisch with us. She is the owner of the Multilingual Detroit Tour Company. Dildora, I have to ask, are your tours on foot? Because I feel like Detroit is a gem, and when you actually walk the city, you see so many things that you don't notice if you're in a car.
No, we're walking. It's our tour is downtown walking tour. Actually, it lasts for 3 hours. And during the tour, we visit Campus Martius, Hart Plaza. We visited 5-6 buildings like Guardian buildings, First National buildings, and as you know, it has so many beautiful buildings which actually supposed to be torn down in the last 50 years, and because city didn't have money, we still kept them. And they turn and boutique hotels like Old Firehouse, Shireen Hotel, Old Metropolitan, Wurlitzer building, or David Whitney building. I bring my visitors in this building to show them what happened to these old buildings that are supposed to be torn down. Now they're very beautiful boutique hotels. This is what we do during my visit tours.
So Dildora Damisch with us. She is the owner of the Multilingual Detroit Tour Company. Over the course of the pandemic, a lot tougher to have people congregate, especially in major city areas that have been, in some ways, hotbeds for the virus's spread. How has your company, how have these tours been impacted by that, and how have you been able to maybe work around the circumstances that we're in to continue your business but do so safely?
Okay, what we do, fortunately, my tour started in June. You cannot imagine how many people coming out of state, because all these visitors supposed to go to Europe because they cannot go out, and they decided to discover their country. And I have a lot of visitors coming from Florida, California, Chicago, Cleveland, Ohio. Usually when I start my tour, we're walking outside. You don't necessarily need to cover your face with a mask. As soon as we get inside the building, we cover with a mask. And I have a sanitizer with me. But so far, it works good,
I love that you're actually still thriving and still being able to offer some of these tours, because for those that haven't had the chance to get out and explore some of these buildings, the architecture is amazing. The Guardian building, anyone out there, get downtown, go to lunch and walk into that building. It's absolutely fabulous. What is your favorite gym to talk about? And do you have any hidden secrets about Detroit that you want to share with us?
Okay, there is just so many secrets. Unfortunately, the people from metropolitan Detroit Detroit town don't come to see the Detroit downtown. They still have unconsciously the cliche of dangerous and, city, but nobody knows. Do you know the organization UNESCO? We're the only city of the United States under the umbrella of UNESCO. Guess why? We have more than 100 buildings which was built in 1920s, and we still have them. Like Book Hotel, like Guardian Building, like Fisher Building, like Folk Theater. I can continue on going on and on and on. There is just so many beautiful buildings. When you have a tour with us, we can show them, we can tell the history, and we can tell about architecture. Have you ever heard about Albert Kahn? Albert Kahn is a wonderful architecture, who started working with Henry Ford. But nobody knows that Albert Kahn, 1926, signed contract with Stalin and built 571 factories in Russia. When I tell about him, I always tell my visitors, the Jewish guy from Detroit helped Russian to defeat Nazis because he was the one he created in the entire industrialization of Soviet Union. I can tell so many interesting stories related to Detroit like this.
That's what makes the tours so fascinating, when they can get a tour guide such as yourself, because it's not just walking around and looking at the buildings, it's the stories behind it. Are you able to get enough other people interested to be tour guides with your organization that share your passion for these stories and these buildings?
Yes, actually, before the quarantine, I started training people. You have to love this city like I do. I just finished my book. I wrote a book about my life and one of the chapter about the Detroit. Last year, when I did tour for the people from Department of State, I worked together with them. And one person from Department of State says, how comes the woman from Uzbekistan providing such a kind of tour? So maybe I used to live in my previous life in Detroit. Every time when I come to the Detroit, I really have this positive energy. I even cannot explain it. I have feeling, I have love, I have passion to this city. And someone who want to do tour or want to work with me, it has to have this passion and love to downtown of Detroit.
I will say I worked in the city for many, many years. In Detroit, you do become passionate and you want to be a champion for the people and for the city and to see it survive. You've been all over the world, though. And so when you say, I love Detroit, I'm passionate about Detroit, come take one of my tours, do some people think you're a little bit crazy?
No, because when the people come, they say, okay, from California, I had last week, the 6 people, the entire family, and they said, friends told you, where are you going to Detroit? It's so dangerous, and people always tell me, and they're so nicely surprised how safe it is, how clean it is. There hardly the homeless people. I'm talking about downtown, And then after my tour, after we visited all these boutique hotels, Guardian and Fisher building, they said they're really, really surprised. They didn't expect this, Yeah, they say I'm too optimistic, I'm too positive. But when they take a tour, they see themselves what happened to Detroit in the last 5 years. We have so many beautiful buildings, updated, renovated, and turned in boutique hotels. And we have so many new restaurants. I really will ask people, come to Detroit, support these businesses, support these new restaurants. You will amaze how the foods are delicious, healthy, and really young chef can beautifully present their food.
Dildora Damisch with us. She is the owner of the Multilingual Detroit Tour Company, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. Dildora, just a few more minutes with you on today's show, about 10 minutes to the top of the hour here today on our broadcast. Right now, what would you say are 3 places in Detroit that maybe people don't visit very often, or aren't the key places that people go when they want to go downtown, but are really interesting or really fun, or there's something there for everybody?
Okay, Campus Martius. Why you don't come with your family on Sunday? There's a park restaurant in Campus Martius. Have a brunch, and then go in Hart Plaza. Take a walk Friday, Saturday, Sunday evening on Riverfront. Yes, come and see the beauty of Guardian Building. We have Detroit Institute of Art. It's actually the second visited place for the tourists in Detroit because of Diego Rivera's murals. My favorite place is Heidelberg Project. If you guys didn't heard about it, it's located next to Eastern Market. It exists for 36 years. When you go to Heidelberg Project, you will discover an beautiful, unusual piece of art on the street. Eastern Market. Go on Saturday to Eastern Market. Do you know the Eastern Market, the biggest farmers market in the United States? Usually Saturday, we have 45,000 people visiting there, except you can see more than 200 murals painted from artists all over the world. This is what you can do. And the restaurants, I can continue going on and on and on.
I'd be interested to know, are you seeing more people from Metro Detroit coming to take a tour with you? People from this area that maybe didn't ever go downtown to explore it the way that you have to offer them?
Unfortunately, I have to say no.
Still a lot of out-of-towners, huh?
This year, I had only one family from Troy. Majority, 99% of my visitors were people out of state. I don't know why the people from metropolitan Detroit area don't go to Detroit. Please come. Usually go to New York, Chicago, to other cities, to discover something nice. Come to Detroit. You will discover, you will see, You can find everything what you're looking for. We have so many gourmet restaurants. Have you been at Hotel Foundation Apparatus Room? We have 2 Michelin star chef, Tom Lance. Come and taste his food. Go to Magnet Restaurant, Omero. We have so many good restaurants. Please come and discover your neighborhood.
Dildora Damisch with us. She's the owner of the Multilingual Detroit Tour Company. Dildora, I have to ask, do you actually live in the city of Detroit?
Oh, no, I live in Farmington Hills. Actually, I was planning to move before the, quarantine. I was looking for the place. And I thought it would be a good idea, at least spend the weekend there, and I'm planning to move. As soon as everything and COVID will be over, I will start to look to the place, and I definitely want to move there.
But what's beautiful is that you still do live in the suburbs, but yet you have this passion and this love for the city. So that doesn't end when you cross 8 Mile, I would imagine. Quickly, if someone wants to take a tour, how do they find out more information? How often do you host these tours, and what's the cost?
I'm a trip advisory #1 tour company in Detroit. My tour called Undiscovered Beauty of Detroit. Or you can personally contact me by the phone or visit our Detroit Town Tour website. Usually we provide tour for 3 hours and cost is $89. And I'm offering actually tour every day at 10 a.m. and 2 a.m.
Give us one other little tidbit that people would learn. Basically, I'm saying, give us a teaser. What will people learn on your tour that they couldn't read out of a book?
Detroit is booming right now, or Civic was coming back in the last 5 years. To see really the city is came back, you have to take the tour with you because we're visiting, a lot of boutique hotels. which probably you wouldn't know without taking the tour. By visiting boutique hotels, you would see old building, this tour and this beautiful boutique hotel, like old firehouse, metropolitan building, or Wurlitzer building. Probably you wouldn't have any ideas to go there and to see this.
Hey, do you have any haunted tours coming up? Because they say the Whitney is haunted.
Haunted? What do you mean haunted?
Yes, the Whitney is the beautiful restaurant downtown.
No. There's just two different things. I'm not talking about Whitney. There is a David Whitney building.
Yes.
It's a beautiful building in new classicism style. It's just turned to the Element Hotel, but you can go there and see the beauty of architecture, which was created in 1920s.
So maybe one of your things for October is you can look into if any of these places are haunted by ghosts and then add that to your tour. It might be just a fun little side tour for you to be able to offer there.
Oh, I will do. I am very creative. I always create something. Before the quarantine, I started my Detroit Gourmet tour, which included 5 new restaurants. And then I'm going to start this tour too. We visit new restaurants, we talk to the chefs, It will be nice.
I love your passion for the city. Thank you so much for being on with us and sharing all your knowledge and all your passion. And I hope things continue to pick up for you. And for all of those here in Metro Detroit, take the time out to take one of your tours and explore our own backyard. You're going to discover new things. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Dildora Damisch with us. She's the owner of the Multilingual Detroit Tour Company. And I think you need to be signed up for one of these.
I should take one. That sounds interesting.
Downtown Detroit is so beautiful. The buildings, the Guardian, the Fisher. But to have someone such as herself who came from another country, was a little scared when she first went to Detroit, but then learned the beauty of the building and the people, and now she's turned it into a business. It's great to see her passion and her love for the city, the building, the architect, the people, as well as the restaurants. However, I will say when she mentioned the Heidelberg, if you're going to the Heidelberg, go on a tour. Don't go by yourself if you're not familiar with Detroit. And while the Heidelberg is internationally known, I will say I've talked to a lot of the neighbors over near the Heidelberg, Tyler. They haven't been so happy with that in their neighborhood.
Interesting.
Yeah, Tyler has no clue what we're talking about.
I don't.
You have no clue what we're talking about. Hey, so we're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. Then when we come back, we'll shift gears just a little bit and dip our toes back into politics. Wow, what a week it's been for politics, I'm telling you. What a year, really. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Wear a mask. Wear a mask.
The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keefe here in our studios in the greater West Bloomfield area. You can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Cable subscribers, thank you so much for still getting cable and supporting programs such as this. If you have Comcast, tune into Channel 15 and Channel 99 on AT&T. Also, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. And our Facebook partner of the day is a shout out to the fine team over at the Keego Harbor Police Department. We want to say thank you for streaming us live on their Facebook page on this Thursday, not Friday. Tyler, as I was thinking before I came in here this morning. Excited to have our next guest on with us. She is the representative for District 19, Laurie Pohutsky. You are so young. I mean, to be your age and doing what you are doing, you are the future of our country and the next generation. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm actually a little bit younger than I look, so sorry, that was my dog. I will take it. I found another gray hair the other day, so that does my heart good. Thank you for saying that.
I know, whenever, us as women, as we get older and they still card us, I'm like, can I tip you for carding me?
Exactly.
No, but you're in your 30s, and I think you're such a great example for the younger generation to let people know that we can all get involved and to be a part of this process. What sparked your interest in politics?
So prior to running for office, I was a microbiologist. I was working in the research field in terms of healthcare diagnostics. And I love science. I'm a huge science geek. I never really saw myself not in that field, but just kind of with the way things changed after 2016, things were going in a direction that I did not like. And as someone who supports evidence-based policy, has a deep respect for science, I saw that there were a lot of laws coming out of the state house, the legislature as a whole, that had a basis in science, but there was no one there to really advocate for sound scientific policy or, ask some questions that people just didn't think to ask, didn't know to ask. So this was, a historically Republican held seat. I'm a Democrat. I figured the worst thing that was going to happen was I would lose an election and I would embarrass myself, and that's okay. But so here I am.
And we've all learned there is actually no failure because it just leads to our next win in life. And what has this process been like for you to go through the election season, and now we're coming up on another one? What has been the ups and what has been the downs for you?
I mean, it was challenging to say the least. It's by far, running for office and being a representative is both the most challenging and most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. It's hard work. I worked throughout my first campaign because I didn't really have an option not to. Like many people, I couldn't just, because I campaigned for over a year. So, that would have been a long time without a paycheck, and I do have a mortgage and things like that. So it was hard to juggle both things. I had a lot of people that were able to, help support me, including just, sending over a casserole when we needed dinner. But it was definitely challenging. The politics can get dirty. So like some of the attacks that, came out last time and have come out this time, it's interesting because I don't know that person that's on those postcards, it's on those TV ads. But that is part of it. So, that's an uncomfortable thing, but it comes with the territory. But being able to represent the people that elected me and to be that person throughout this crisis, in particular, the pandemic, has been a huge honor, and it's been very, very rewarding. A fair amount of this job is just constituent services, connecting people with resources or, finding the answers to questions that they might have. And that certainly went into overdrive once the pandemic hit. So that has been, a huge honor.
Representative Laurie Pohutsky with us. She is from she's a Michigan State Representative from District 19, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. Laurie, recently there was some funding passed on the state level that was provided for education in our state, with our schools really in a tough spot this year, having to adjust to completely different formats of teaching and learning, and providing additional resources throughout the school district and tightening up their funding and the pocketbooks in order to operate at all this year and plan for the future as well. How critical right now is that funding to these schools, and what has it allowed them to do, adjusting for the circumstances of this year, to continue education as is expected in their school districts?
So the funding is pivotal. School funding is always pivotal here in Michigan. Unfortunately, we have been underfunding our public schools for quite some time. And the concern in most communities, certainly in mine, was that because we are dealing with the deficit due to the necessary response for the pandemic, we were going to cut the school aid budget, because unfortunately that's happened a lot. And that was a very valid concern. Fortunately, that's not what happened. And in fact, there was a slight increase for per pupil funding. That is by no means going to save the day, but it was a very necessary increase, to say the least. So, like you said, what schools have had to do in response to this and make sure that they're able to educate these students in a safe manner and, to keep everyone healthy, staff and students alike, costs money. That might be in terms of IT. It might be in terms of making sure that the kids who rely on school for simply eating a meal are still able to get those meals. So, that per pupil funding increase can go to things like that, to make sure that even though we're in this unprecedented time and there are additional costs, some of those can be covered, and we can make sure that these districts have the ability to meet these students where they are and keep everyone safe, because this pandemic is not over. And as the cold weather hits, I think that we're going to face a very significant challenge. So making sure that they have the funding needed to meet that challenge is pivotal.
I worry so much about the kids where maybe their home isn't their safe space, or it's not where they, it's not their best learning environment. It's not where they're actually getting their, nutritious meal of the day. And I worry about those kids at the end of this pandemic and what's happening to them and how far back they are going to be. So the good thing coming out of Lansing is that both sides were able to put aside your differences to try to address some of these issues so that we can do what we can do for so many of these kids, because they are going to be the future of our state, when they grow up in, 5, 10, 15 years. So thank you for all the work that you and all of our elected leaders are doing to try to get us through this pandemic. And I will say, first-time lawmaker, and to go through something like this, do you feel like you could handle anything that comes your way now?
I say regularly, when I was running for office, I was talking about how it was important to have a microbiologist in the legislature and, diverse backgrounds and things like that. And I studied the last pandemic we had, the 1918 pandemic. So this was not on my first term bingo card. This is not what I saw coming. Right. But I am very grateful that I'm there. It was definitely like a trial by fire, and it was certainly not just me. It was certainly not other lawmakers. Our staff, in all of our offices had to rise to the occasion. Like I said, a lot of this came down to constituent services, and there were no off hours. We had the people in my office were working at all hours. They were, sending emails back and forth at 1, 2, 3 in the morning to make sure that we were getting through this backlog of cases, particularly around unemployment cases. So I do definitely think that we are better for it. And I think that my office functions better for it, and that I am a better lawmaker because of it. Yeah.
And because of your science background, I wonder what issues that would maybe be on the forefront had the pandemic not happen. Some of those issues, could they be, pushed aside right now because we're in a crisis mode? And so many times those do involve the environment. So once we come out of this, what do you want to see happen with so many of the issues on the environmental side that we're not addressing right now?
So when we talk about environmental issues, I agree with you. I think for a lot of people, that's not front and center right now. And I represent a district where consistently, from the time I started running in 2017 up until the pandemic first hit in March here in Michigan, environmental issues were their top priority. Water contamination, air quality, things like that. And I do think that that's not necessarily front and center, but I think it's really, really important that we recognize that all of the issues we were talking about before the pandemic hit, things like education, healthcare, yes, the environment, all played a role in what the pandemic looked like here. So if we're just looking at the environment, there are areas that are facing, really poor air quality, and the residents of those areas typically have respiratory issues every day of the year. Water quality, water contamination, depending on what's in the water, sometimes suppresses the immune system and causes, other underlying health effects. And then when you put a pandemic on top of that, those areas were hit even harder than areas that weren't facing those environmental issues. So I understand that right now people aren't necessarily thinking about PFAS contamination or air quality from the that's being impacted by the Marathon Petroleum Refinery. But those issues are still very, very connected to the problems that we're facing during the pandemic. The pandemic exacerbated those already existing issues. So I know that it's very difficult to look at those through the lens of COVID-19, but I think it's very important that we do, because there's a reason that all of these issues were so critical this time last year, even back in February. They're still very, very important. And I think that the pandemic has actually underlined why they're so important. We've just kind of seen a different perspective of it.
So with that, Representative Laurie Pohutsky from Michigan's 19th District State Representative, where do you go from a legislative standpoint, from a committee standpoint on the state level, to talk about these issues and address them from the legislature's perspective, while there's so many other issues going on that may seem like more primary issues, so to speak, with people from both caucuses?
I think that it's just important to underline why they're still important, why these became why these issues were exacerbated by the pandemic. This is not something that anyone expected to experience this year. This happens, once every 100 years or so. So we need to plan understanding that these things happen. We aren't just talking about water quality on, a normal day where there are no other complicating issues. We're not just talking about education funding when schools aren't scrambling to make sure their IT infrastructure is, up to snuff because students have to suddenly learn from home. But making sure that we don't lose sight of why these issues were made worse by the pandemic, and understanding that as policymakers, it is our job to plan for these worst case scenarios that do come up, because this time it was a pandemic. It could have been something else. I mean, in the middle of the pandemic, we also had this massive flooding and, these dam failures in the middle of the state. So it was a pandemic. It could have been anything else. So we need to understand that these issues don't go away depending on, what crisis we're facing. And frequently, these types of crises make these things worse. So the legislation that we introduced throughout this entire term, and all of the talking points and the messaging that we did about why they're important, we just need to pivot it to include how this was impacted by the pandemic and why it's still tremendously important, even though we are dealing with this very real and very ongoing crisis.
Yeah, because the other problems are not going away. As you mentioned, from the outside, it seems like the political arena is so divisive right now. As a new member of the legislature, what's it been like for you to be able to go in there, and is it as divisive as it seems, or are you able to reach across the aisle to get some of these issues resolved?
In some cases, it is absolutely as divisive as it seems, unfortunately. I mean, to be completely honest, I won my election by the most narrow margin in the House that year. So I am the most marginal member of the minority party. I hit roadblocks that other people, even in my caucus, wouldn't, and I hit roadblocks that certainly the majority party doesn't. That being said, there are some legislators over on the other side of the aisle that I completely trust to work on legislation with. There's a Representative Mike Mueller from the Fenton area. He and I have worked on multiple packages together, and as a matter of fact, the last, I hesitate to say normal session day because things were just ramping up with this crisis, but at the middle of March, right before we, kind of suspended session for a little while, I had a bill package around price gouging. That was something that we saw popping up all across the state. People getting charged, $40 for a pound of hamburger, toilet paper going for $30, things like that. And I had a 3-bill package. It was also bicameral. It was being introduced in the Senate as well. And I walked over to Mike and I said, this is important. I know it's impacting my community. I'm sure it's impacting yours too. I want this to be bipartisan. It's bipartisan in the Senate. I want a flag that this is an issue that we agree on. It's not political. It's something that we need to deal with. And he read them over for 5 minutes, put his name on them. We dropped them that day. And those policies ended up going in, those policies went into the Attorney General and the governor's orders and policies around price gouging. So that was something that we actually got to accomplish, but it was important to me that that be a bipartisan effort because that's not just happening in Democratic districts. It's not just happening in Republican districts. It was going on across the state. So it was very important to me that we make sure it be handled that way and that it be clear that this was something we were working together on.
As someone that this is your first term, what do you think your future is going to hold?
I hate that question. I don't know. I mean, I'm running for re-election now, obviously, and it would be an honor to continue representing the 19th House District. Past that, in all honesty, I'm trying to make sure I'm doing this job right now. We have term limits, so, tops, I get 3 terms in the State House, and then I do have to find something else. But right now, my top priority is just representing the 19th House District and making sure I'm doing that to the best of my ability, especially as this crisis continues to go on.
One thing that we are seeing, I don't know if it's going to be for the good or for the bad, though, because of the way politics are right now, there does seem to be a lot more interest in politics than I think I've ever remembered in the past, 10, 15, 20 years. And even more so, I think people are paying so much more attention to our local, state, and partners, and not just who's on the top of the ballot. So knowing that, do you think going into the election that this is going to spur more interest in politics, especially for your younger generation?
I think so. I certainly hope so, but I think so too. There's a number of people that have reached out, since I started running back in 2017 that have said, because, like you said, I am young. I'm not necessarily your stereotypical politician. And I also try to be very, very accessible, much to the consternation of both my campaign and my government staff. So, being able to ask me questions and just, it can be very overwhelming to enter politics. And that's something that I certainly understand and still feel, even though I've been doing this for a little while. So I think having people who are much more accessible, because it's certainly not just me. A lot of my colleagues also make an effort to be very open and available for people. To just ask questions and find out how to get involved and what's the best way to start volunteering or start working in a legislative office, I think has definitely helped maintain that momentum and maintain that interest. So I do think that people are starting to pay more attention to more local races and more local offices. And I do think that that's going to result in more people kind of entering that political arena.
Representative Laurie Pohutsky with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Anything that we didn't touch on that maybe you want to get out to our viewers and our listeners?
Just, I know that there's a lot of information out there. I know that it's very divisive right now. And no matter what side you fall on, it's just so important to vote. I know that there's a lot of talk right now about, the security of mail-in voting and things like that. There's all kinds of security measures. Most of my colleagues and I have been talking about them extensively. We've put some policies into place. We've voted on some legislation to help make it a little bit more of a smooth process this year, since it's, there's some mitigating circumstances, obviously. So I just really want to encourage people to make a voting plan, whether it's in person, whether you're mailing in that ballot by October 19th, or whether you're dropping it off with your clerk. Just please stay engaged.
Every vote does count. Thank you so much. We do appreciate your time. We know how busy you are. Good luck to you as well, and continue to be an inspiration to all the younger people out there to get involved and be a part of the process. Don't just sit back and complain about it. Good luck to you. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we are going to be checking in with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, another woman who is making great strides in the area of law enforcement. I'm excited to talk to her. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1. Turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2. Apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3. Wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4. Rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And Step 5. Dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6. If you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for staying with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl in the studios here with Tyler Keefe. We are going to be switching gears just a little bit. I'm excited to talk to this next person, Captain Melissa McClellan. She is with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department and has recently been named the first female captain at the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate having you on the Megacast. I'm sorry, Captain. Can you hear us?
I can. Good morning.
How are you today?
I am doing wonderful on this beautiful Thursday.
I know. Sadly, it's not Friday like I thought it was this morning, but we'll still take a Thursday with sunshine, right?
Absolutely. We don't have many more days like this.
I know. Congratulations on your promotion.
Why, thank you. I appreciate it.
And while I'm happy to say congratulations, I'm still kind of like, I can't believe that this is 2020 and they are just recently naming the first female captain. That says so much about you and your dedication to the Sheriff's Department and the people of Oakland County.
I appreciate that, and it's been a very humbling experience because I know there's been quite a while, like I say, 31 years for me, and I tell you, I'm still pinching myself a little bit, but I'm very honored to hold this title, and I do understand the importance of it all.
And Captain, it's got to be a hard time for you to be in this area. You're taking on this new responsibility in a time where across the nation there's been so much backlash about our law enforcement officers and our law enforcement divisions. What do you want the general public to know about what you and all of your coworkers do day in and day out?
It is important for the nation to know that law enforcement officers who take that oath, they want to perform their job to the best of their abilities. They want to ensure that they are following the procedures, the laws. They don't want any chaos or any mistrust. For the most part, there's been calls for reforms, and the leaders are not against any type of reforms. As a matter of fact, they encourage any type of increased training and increased abilities to actually hold law enforcement accountable. For the most part, agencies across this nation have policies in place, and they do hold people accountable. And we want the community to understand that they're an integral part of how we do our job and perform. And we do not want to approach those as if there's mistrust in law enforcement, because we do not want to work along with someone who brings any type of mistrust to the badge. So those are the type of things that we would love to get across to law enforcement, is that for the most part, we do have officers out here performing their jobs to the best of their abilities, and they are proponents of any type of increased training or law enforcement policies that would help make their jobs a lot easier.
31 years on the job for you. You started as a civilian clerk. How has this job changed through the years since you've been with the department?
Well, I tell you, there's quite a bit of different aspects in reference to training and changes. You know how they say the more things change, the more they stay the same? For the foundation of law enforcement, there's not been much change. However, the way we carry out our jobs, we still protect citizens. We still are very much into care and custody. There's been quite a few technology changes that have met. You have laws that have changed. So for the basic foundations of law enforcement, it remains the same. We're here to protect that badge. We're here to carry out our jobs to the best of our abilities. We are now faced with technology where things are right front and center and of the immediate. And that's the response a lot of times where you may see the community. For instance, you have your cell phones now. You have things that are just so fast-paced with technology. So those different aspects is where I see there's been a lot of different changes that has happened over the years.
What's it been like? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But for the most part, we have had training, various ongoing training that has maintained. We keep up with any type of new procedures that come out. So in aspects of any changes, I would have to say the way that law enforcement jobs are carried out, there's more community involvement, and there's more, I would say, more appearances where the law enforcement aspect is more out in the community. There's more visibility to each aspect that a law enforcement and an officer carries out their roles. And
how important do you think that is to the department and to law enforcement to show how much they are committed to the community and being more involved with the community?
That is a very important aspect of how law enforcement carries out their roles. You want to ensure that there's transparency, first of all. Law enforcement agencies and the communities, they want to see that the orders are carried out, the lawful manners, the police roles are carried out in a very honest, transparent manner. And that's what's important, that the community wants to see the transparency of it all. So in that aspect, they want to make sure that the training is kept up. They want to ensure that they are carrying out to the best of their abilities these roles as lawful and behind their badge and oath.
Captain Melissa McClellan with us. She is from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, joining us today on the Megacast. She was recently named the first female captain at the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, and she's with us today as we're joined on a variety of different media outlets, including the Facebook page of the Keego Harbor Police Department. So, Captain McClellan, as you transition into this new role and as you're communicating with County Sheriff Bouchard and others in the department and other law enforcement agencies, how important has communication been with the public as we continue to experience these protests throughout the state, throughout the local area, on a national level, and discussions about police roles in communities and police actions are continuing to be in the public discourse on a political level and on a procedural level?
I think that the communication with the public is key because you want to make sure that, first of all, there's a lot of information that goes across, as you know, that sometimes it's inaccurate. And what that does sometimes is kind of fuel a lot of the responses of the community. And that's something you definitely do not want out in your community, especially when you're patrolling areas and you're trying to develop a better relationship with your community. So as far as information, you want to make sure that you're having this accurate and reliable information out. So in today's world where there's again, I would say a lot of instantaneous information that has the ability to sometimes be, once it's out in print and once it's out in, say, for instance, across the networks and across the social media sites, sometimes people take that to fact. And so it's important to make sure that the fact is actually out there as quick as possible, while also making sure that you're not interrupting any investigations, because it's unfortunate, but that's what the community is responding to. And sometimes it may heighten a situation, and sometimes it may not. But it's important to make sure that accurate information is placed out as quick as possible in order to not have those gaps filled in with information that's not factual.
Yep, we're all saying that's the one thing with video right now. It's so accessible and it's posted on social media within seconds, and people don't understand the full concept as to what happened. I could imagine that makes the job of law enforcement that much harder as well. We're speaking with Captain Melissa McClellan with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She's from the Sheriff's Department here in Oakland County, and we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to carve out a little bit of time to speak with us. She is the first female captain at the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. And I'm wondering, in that role, what do you want other females to know who may be considering going into law enforcement? Because as females, not that males and fathers don't have a lot of pressure, but there seems to be more pressure on so many females. they wonder, can you have a family, and how do you juggle the family life with single life and your law enforcement life as well? What advice do you give to other females thinking about going into law enforcement?
The advice I would give any female that's considering going into law enforcement is to, first of all, you always want to weigh your options. It's not something that if that's something that you would like to do, attempt to do that. Go out and seek these roles because you are a female should not hinder or discourage you in any aspect. Years ago, when I first started here, for instance, there's been so many different changes. And here in the Sheriff's Office, one that I'm very proud of is that we've made it easier for women to actually work into these professions. When I first started here in '89, for instance, women here in the Sheriff's Office, prior to our current administration, and because it was the makeup of the Sheriff's Office, where women were only work with, let's say, for instance, female prisoners. And I believe it was around 93, 94 that we were able to work in a non-gender-based fashion. So I would say there's been so many different advancements as far as barriers that's been broken down for women. So I would encourage any woman who is seeking law enforcement, whether it's fire department, to meet those needs, to go out and seek these opportunities. Do not allow your size become a factor. Do not allow your gender to become a factor, because legally I'm around, I'd say about 4'11", but I have never once felt 4'11". When people ask me my size, I always say 6'1", because that is how I see myself. And as a woman, you need to see yourself as able and have the ability to carry out the role. And then you have to have confidence in yourself. And that's what I would encourage any woman out there, is to seek these roles.
Wow, 31 years with the department. I bet you have some stories to tell. What's been the most rewarding part of this position for you?
The most rewarding part has been, there's been several points. One is not having any deterrences for wanting to take the next challenge. When I started off as a clerk, I didn't come into the job wanting to be a police officer. And I tell a lot of incoming candidates, a lot of incoming new recruits, I didn't start off wanting to be a police officer. I was just looking for a job. The sheriff's office has so many different opportunities for growth that no matter what I sought, I was given an opportunity and was not held back from it. So those are some of the things that I can take forward, and I often share with other women, with other young candidates coming in, whether they have experience with coming in with the police academy or whether they have no experience. If they feel or if they want doors open for them, do not be afraid to seek these challenges. Do not be afraid to take the next opportunity. It is when you limit yourself and you do not feel that you can apply for something, is when you won't do it. So I would not be where I was today, taking the next opportunity, if it was not for an agency who had open doors and allowed those opportunities for growth. So that's definitely what I would take forward. I encourage people all the time, if you want to do something, you put in for it. Take these opportunities. When you are given a task, complete the task. Take the task.
Captain, those are great words to live by and great advice for everyone out there, not just those in law enforcement. We want to say thank you so much for taking a little bit of your time today. I know you're extremely busy to share with us your story. Congratulations again on the promotion. And thank you again for your commitment to the people of Oakland County and all of us here. We so appreciate it.
I thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And say hi to the sheriff over there, the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. They actually have so many good programs that go on. I know they also do like self-defense for women through the Sheriff's Department. Go on their website, their Facebook page. They're very active. Sheriff Bouchard is active in all of their community events and see what the Sheriff Department has to offer. And if you are considering law enforcement, please check them out as well. We need good people keeping all of us safe. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and then we'll round out the show. Boy, that's 2 hours really goes so fast. We'll round out the show talking of politics. Whew. Let's get 2 cents on the debate the other night. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards. Back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for sticking with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Just about 20 minutes left in the show. And what better way to end it than talking politics? I am telling you, Dr. Peter Trumbore, he's a professor and chair at the Department of Political Science over at Oakland University. We always love having all of you and members of your team with us on the Megacast to talk politics. What an exciting time to be a political junkie.
I guess that's one way to put it. It's also anxiety raising and hair pulling, but yeah, it's a time like none other than we've seen at least in my memory. So yeah, this is something.
And do you sit there and go, oh, it can't get worse than this, or it's not going to be this, it's not going to be this, and then every day you just wake up, you turn on, you tune into a debate, or could you even call that a debate? Is that where you want to start today?
I'll start wherever you'd like. That was not a debate. It was really the furthest thing from a debate. If by debate we mean that the candidates have an opportunity to talk about their visions for the country and to really talk about the issues that are important to voters. That's certainly not at all what happened on Tuesday night. So it wasn't a debate. It was, frankly, it was a rage-induced temper tantrum and a food fight and an embarrassment. When Joe Biden characterized it on the stump yesterday as a national embarrassment, I think he was right. It was not a shining moment.
Yeah, I don't think anyone who watched that debate, who was going in to try to make a decision on who they were actually going to vote for, came out with any definitive answer, because nothing new came out of that other than what you just said. It was an embarrassment, and I think the American people lost. And I wonder, do you think they're going to have a second debate?
I think they will. Yeah, the debate commission is going to try to create some mechanisms to help them enforce the rules that the candidates theoretically have already agreed to. I don't know if that means they're going to introduce a microphone kill switch or what they're going to do. But it was very clear that that the moderator on Tuesday night, Chris Wallace, had no ability to regain control. Once control was lost, and it took just moments into the debate. Once he lost control, there was no getting it back. And so we'll have to wait and see what the debate commission comes up with in terms of finding a way to impose some kind of order on the candidates. And I guess we should be clear here. The candidate who needs to be reined in this setting is Donald Trump. That said, these debates are important. They're important not because they necessarily move voters. That typically doesn't happen as a result of debates. But they are windows into the style and the temperament and the character of the candidates, and for that reason, these things make a difference. They matter, and they matter to our process. They're part of this democratic process that we have. The one that's coming up next is also important because it's a town hall style format, which means that the questions are being posed by voters, and it's important for these two candidates to put themselves out in front of the voters and to do so side by side, so we can really see a direct comparison. So, some Democrats were saying that Biden should basically drop out of the next two debates. I don't think that's going to happen. Biden said yesterday that he has every intention of going forward with it. So we'll just have to sort of see what comes up and hope that the style changes.
And I'm wondering if going into that debate, if that was Trump's intent, because one thing that did come out of it, he got the headlines. Everyone is talking about him, good or bad. And we have to remember, he's not your typical politician. He is a reality star, a business person. So did he intend to do that? And did he get what he wanted?
Well, I think it's so if what he wanted was maximum attention on himself, which may well be, what his aim was. And I think, he got that. Was this his plan all along? Yes, it's very clear. And in fact, if you were paying attention to the stories leading up, talking about how the candidates were preparing, Trump really wasn't preparing for the debate in the way that we think about debate prep. He was telling his team that, as far as he was concerned, the experience of being president was preparation enough. And he was trying out one-liners and sort of attacks on various aides and friends. It was pretty clear from the get-go that he was not interested in actually having a discussion on the issues or on his record or even on, Joe Biden's 40-plus year record in public service. What he was interested in doing was disrupting, attacking, needling, trying to get Biden to basically, play on his level. And I think Biden, to his credit, for most of those 98 minutes, because they ran over, for most of that time, I think Biden resisted the very real temptation to rise to the bait. And I think that Biden was most successful when he actually turned away from Trump and spoke directly to the American people, spoke directly into the camera. Those moments were few and far between, but I think that's when Biden was most effective. I don't think that the president was interested in much more than the spectacle. And I think we see that just in the tweets that he released like today, either today or yesterday, talking about how great the ratings were, as if that's what it is, just a TV show. So, moving forward, things are going to have to change if we're going to get much of value beyond the stark character contrast between these two candidates.
Dr. Peter Trumbore with us. He's a professor and the chair of the Department of Political Science at Oakland University, with us today on the Oakland County Megacast. Dr. Trumbore, after that first presidential debate, we still have a vice presidential debate coming up. Definitely far different personalities on both sides of the ticket that will be participating in that debate. And you mentioned earlier on in this interview that the presidential debates don't typically have a great influence on the voting public. It's more about observing temperament and character style and character types of the candidates that are on the ticket. In terms of this vice presidential debate, with what we saw on display on Tuesday night this week, how much more important will a vice presidential debate be in seeing those personalities and those character traits of the Republican and the Democratic tickets for president?
Well, I think that the vice presidential debate next week is going to be completely different in terms of tone and style, because Kamala Harris and Mike Pence are, for the most part, they're traditional politicians. They know the rules. They know how these things operate. And Pence shares a lot of Trump's politics, but doesn't share Trump's temperament. And so I think the trick during the vice presidential debate for Mike Pence is going to be to actually do what Trump didn't have to do, and that is to defend the administration's record over the last almost 4 years now. Pence chairs the coronavirus task force, so he is going to be in a position where he is going to have to directly answer questions, both posed by the moderator and that are going to come at him from Harris. He's going to have to essentially own the administration's response to the coronavirus. And he's going to have to try to defend the president and defend the president's conduct, especially things like the president's frank refusal. Really, I think all you can do is call it a refusal to condemn, white nationalists and white supremacist groups. So Pence is going to have a really big job to do of playing cleanup for the president. I think that Harris has a much easier task. She has to do what she can to hold Pence's feet to the fire and to really make that clear contrast between what a Biden-Harris administration would look like compared to what another 4 years of Trump-Pence would look like. But again, thinking about, do these things move the needle at all? I mean, vice presidential debates matter far less even than presidential debates in terms of how the public views the races. But again, they're important because they represent the few opportunities that we get to see both camps speaking to the American people and drawing that direct contrast between themselves. And so they're important for that regard, even if they don't move voter sentiment very much.
So even with that being the case, Dr. Trumbore, in this particular election, in this particular situation with what we saw on display on Tuesday night from both candidates, will the vice presidential debate in this particular election or this particular vice presidential debate itself be that much more important, given that people have a bad taste left in their mouth from both parties and for those that are not affiliated with either party after what they saw on Tuesday night?
Well, it could be. But again, I would expect that we'll see pretty good viewership. I mean, they typically don't get the same kind of viewership that the presidential candidates get. But again, so we sort of think about the broad trajectory of how much do these things matter in the dynamics of any given presidential race. They just don't tend to shift voter attitudes. It's especially true and especially hard to do that this year, given that in this presidential cycle, the pool of truly undecided voters is much smaller than we typically see, and certainly smaller than it was in 2016. And I would also say that certainly on the Republican side, on the Trump side, the pool of soft Trump supporters who at this point could be convinced to abandon him, is also likely to be really, really small. I mean, his support has held steady at right around 40%, shifting between 40 and 43% almost for that entire 3 years. He's never cracked the 50% approval bar. But then again, his approval rarely has fallen below 40%. Meanwhile, the overall spread has been pretty much the same since about March, about a 7 to 8% margin in favor of Joe Biden, and that hasn't changed much. So again, I don't think a lot of movement is going to happen as a result of these debates. That said, we learn important things, and they're valuable for those reasons.
And Doctor, I have a question. We're just over 30 days away from the election, and I think the the show is going to continue well past Election Day. Do you think President Trump, if he were to lose, will he actually leave office? And what could that scenario look like?
So, yeah, so here's the thing, right? If he loses, he will leave office. The question is, will he acknowledge that he has lost? And how far will he go to try to create, if he loses, try to create a counter narrative that people will believe? So part of the issue is that he can't do this by himself, right? Trump cannot cling to power alone. He would need to have institutional support to do it. At state levels, right? He would need to have state election officials and state legislatures who are willing to basically keep him in office by putting forward alternate groups of electors. He would have to have members of Congress, and both in the House and Senate, who would be willing to back his play. He would ultimately have to have a Supreme Court potentially that would have to back that also. So this is one of those things where he can't do it by himself. He would need a lot of others facilitating an attempt to hold power if he has in fact lost. That said, the more decisive the defeat, the harder it will be for him to spin a counter narrative. And this is something that certainly Biden has talked about, and a lot of other sort of commentators, and analysts have talked about, that the bigger the margin on Election Day, the harder it will be to spin this counter narrative that the votes really aren't what the votes are. And so in that, in part, right, is why we've started to hear in recent days Democrats being urged to, if you're going to vote, if your state allows you to vote early like Michigan does, to do it now so those votes get counted immediately, early on Election Day. If you're going to vote by mail, send that in as soon as possible so that they are all there in your clerk's office on November 3rd, and they can begin to get counted on Election Day. And if like me, you're not comfortable with either of those options, show up at the polls on the 3rd, wear your mask, socially distance, use your hand sanitizer. But the bottom line is the bigger the margin for either candidate on Election Day, the harder it will be for one of these counter narratives to be spun that could throw the process into chaos. That doesn't mean that chaos can't happen. It doesn't mean that we will go into yet more uncharted and unprecedented territory. I mean, I think Ronnie asked at the beginning of the interview, is this sort of an exciting time? And I'll tell you, it's gotten very difficult over the last 3 years to have to always answer questions in interviews like this. But the first thing out of your mouth is, wow, we've never seen that before, right? The sort of the unprecedented nature of where we are in our political life right now is unprecedented. And so it's like one sort of daily outrage after another. I mean, something else is going to come up between now and October 15th, which is the next presidential debate. So, I think that the bottom line is there are all kinds of doomsday scenarios about just how bad things could get. And I think that's why it is imperative for those who are planning to vote to do it early if they can. And if they don't feel comfortable doing it that way, show up on November 3rd and fulfill your civic duty on Election Day.
Just about 2 minutes left here with you. Quickly, do you think there is actually widespread voter fraud?
No, there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud. That doesn't mean that voter fraud hasn't occurred, and there are certainly periods in American history, back in, for example, the 1850s, in which voter fraud was rampant. But no, voter fraud is not an issue in American elections. It just isn't. And certainly mail-in ballots are some of the most secure ways of voting. Secure enough that this is how our military has voted for a generation. Secure enough that the president himself uses a mail-in ballot. So no, this is an absolutely false narrative that has been spun principally by the president and his allies to try to throw into question what the outcome is going to be. You don't try to delegitimize an election if you think you're going to win it. The only reason that you would do that is if you are reading the signs and are pretty sure that you're going to lose. And I think that's why Trump was spinning those arguments back in 2016. Trump himself did not expect to win, but he needed to be able to create a narrative that would protect his ego. Why didn't I win? Because the Democrats rigged the outcome, and then he won, and then he still claimed the outcome was rigged. So I'm not quite sure, how you get there.
Well, I think we're in for a crazy ride over the next month or two. And like you said, every day it's something new. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. We appreciate having you here with us on the Oakland County Megacast. We'll definitely be checking in with you and other members of your team over the next month. Dr. Peter Trumbore with us. He is the professor and chair for the Department of Political Science over at the Oakland University. Thank you so much for your time and your insight as always.
Thank you, Ronnie.
That's going to pretty much wrap it up for Tyler and I here on the Thursday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Boy, this 2 hours goes by so quickly, but I want to say thank you to Tyler, Jake, as well as Larry and the entire team here at Civic Center TV.